I think serial killers are people with some messed up bits of code in their heads that are left over from our more predatory ancestors. I've personally had some experience with a serial killer in my hometown if anyone is interested. It's not your typical X story, but it's still interesting enough. I was going up for a hike in these canyons like I normally do a couple times a month. It's a great spot and good for exercise. There's an old train bridge that goes across the ravine at some point. I say old, but it's been rebuilt recently. Anyhow, I decided to explore underneath the bridge and see what's down there. There's a lot of old abandoned rusty parts from construction, beer bottles, and a camping chair, for some reason. I can hear what I'm pretty sure is people talking or walking above. At some point I hear what sounds like a cry for help, so I shout back and get a response. I run closer, but then there's a crash and a thud in the trees up ahead of me. I push through the bush as fast as I can, very slowly, and find the body laying there. I'll spare you any gruesome details, but to say the least, the injuries were incompatible with life. I shout up for help, but they either don't answer or can't hear me. I freak out and try to call 911, but this place is pretty remote and cell service is mostly non-existent. At this point, I'm not sure whether to move the body with me to the trail or leave it where it is. I decide it's probably a bad idea to mess with a potential crime scene, and plus I don't want to get all bloody or carry a gross, disgusting, mangled corpse around. As I head back to the path, I can hear twigs and branches snapping in the distance. It's pretty much impossible to move in thick brush without making any noise. This person was trying to, but without a whole lot of success. I immediately got a flash of, oh shit, when I realized that they may not have friendly intentions. It's hard to explain, but it's just the way they were moving. It sounded like they were trying to make as little noise as possible. So why would someone be doing that? And right after someone calling for help that fell off a bridge? And after I had been screaming for someone to help? Fight or flight response kicked in. I sort of ignored my instinct and went for an intermediate option. I went a ways back into the bush and hid myself while still having a decent vantage point of the area the body had fallen in. The noise coming through the brush got closer and closer, and after about 5 minutes I could see someone walking down the slope towards the body. Their clothing wasn't remarkable. I honestly don't even remember what they were wearing. As for a description, I'm not really the best kind of person for that. I don't remember really specific details much like that, so all I can really say is that the guy was very tall, probably around 40-ish years old, and had some sort of hat on. Clothing was muted, no bright colors, but it was still easy to see him. The guy walks up to the body and looks all around, probably looking for me. When he can't find anything, he goes back to the body, starts examining the wounds. The main thing I remember about his manner is that it was predatory. His walk, posture, it all screamed to me that this man was a predator. The man pulled a small folding spade out of his backpack and proceeded to drag the body further into the forest. I could tell he had done this before, just on the basis of how confident and assured he seemed to be. I waited for the noise to fade away, then got up and moved as quietly as I could back towards the trail that leads back down to the park entrance where my car is. It took me about 4 hours to get here, so it's not exactly an easy hike back. After a certain point, I stopped trying to be quiet and just sort of half-run/jogged the best I can through the tangle of trees and brush, dead logs, and uneven terrain. It takes me a bit, but I get back to the trail so I take a quick breather before heading back up the slope to the main trail. That's when I hear a sound. It's faint, barely noticeable, but I'm always paranoid for bears and cougars on hikes, so I have a pretty good ear for these things. I sort of realized all at once that this guy was a lot smarter than I had given him credit for. That he somehow knew I would be watching, or he saw me and pretended to walk off to bury the body to give me a false sense of security. My first instinct is to just dash off down the trail like a moron, running and screaming for help. I came so close to doing that. If I had, I honestly think I wouldn't be here today to tell the story. The whole thing is a bit of a blur in my mind, but I recall thinking about how he had outsmarted me and basically tricked me into thinking he hadn't seen me while he followed me covertly. Thinking about it, I wonder just how long he'd known I was there. He probably had seen or heard me from the top of the bridge, maybe watched me for a while when he came down. It's hard to say because this is all stuff I'm thinking of in retrospect. But it was clear in the moment that he had outsmarted me because I'd underestimated him, and that he was much more dangerous than I had first anticipated. He was moving with uncanny silence now. If I hadn't been aware of him, I wouldn't have heard him at all. I actually hadn't heard him at all for a few minutes, and I was scared that he was way too close for comfort at this point. So, rationally, assuming that he couldn't catch or kill me if I ran away was dumb. The smartest way to play it would be to pretend that I didn't know he was following me. So I made a big show of being upset or scared and was trying to make a call on my phone, of course there is no service, before going back up the trail. As the trail reaches the top of the canyon, it continues along in various straight stretches for quite a ways. Basically, it's hard for someone to sneak up on you because it's a big, long, straight gravel trail and more of a gravel road than anything else. I actually see 4x4 vehicles driving on it every now and then. I have a really good feeling he's behind me, but I'm too afraid to turn and look behind me because then I think he'll know that he's following me. But at the same time, maybe not looking is suspicious. But I pretty much decide to keep walking ahead, hurried pace but not too fast even though my heart is pounding like a jackhammer. After a while of walking, I take out my phone and pretend to try and make another call on it, but I actually take a quick sneak at the reverse camera or a selfie thing on the camera app, and I'm able to confirm that he is, in fact, on the trail following behind me. I'm a few minutes away from full-blown panic and still trying to stay as normal as possible while the killer is stalking behind me. Does he have a gun? If he has a gun, he could be shooting at me at any moment. It could just be lights out. My life shut off without me even having the courtesy of hearing the bullet before it disconnects my brain. Try to ambush or surprise him? Is he waiting for something? When is he going to make his move? What the fuck should I be doing? That's pretty much the shit that was going through my head. I had no idea what I was going to do. Then I had the thought that he knew that I knew that he was following me. What if I'd underestimated him again? What was he planning? I'm not sure if it was the adrenaline or fear that caused the response, but something just sort of clicked inside of me. I realized that this guy was a predator, and that he was familiar with the chase. He delighted in the fear of his victims. He could probably read the fact that I knew he was following me based on my body language. He could probably tell I was terrified out of my mind, and he was probably getting off on it. So I did the one thing he would never have expected. I stopped, turned around, and started walking towards him. I don't know where I got the confidence from, but it came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, I wasn't scared. I was angry, I was furious, I was the opposite of scared. He was obviously a bit confused, as he stopped walking to stare as I came toward him. As I came further, I pulled out the 6-inch buck knife I keep on me for bears out, tossed it off to the side like it was worthless as I kept walking towards him. I'm not sure why I did that, even now. I was basically acting on pure, primal instinct at that point. The memories I have of it are almost in third person, like I'm watching someone else. In any case, whatever the reason, I tossed my knife away, screamed at the top of my lungs while pounding my chest, and charged him at full speed. I was around 20 feet from him when he pulled what I think was a gun out of his waistband. I'm honestly not sure because I never got a good look at it. If it was a gun, maybe the safety was on. It jammed or it was a fake. God knows. All I remember from that point is slamming into him, wrapping my arms around him in a bear hug. I had about 4 to 5 inches on him height-wise and probably around 50 pounds in weight. I don't remember how long the struggle lasted, but it ended when I chucked him off the side of the path into the ravine, which was, at this point of the trail, an extremely steep slope that was basically 800 feet nearly straight down to the riverbed. You've probably heard of the adrenaline giving you a shit ton of strength thing, and I'm absolutely certain it's true because I literally picked him up over my shoulder and tossed him a good 10 feet straight out from the path before he began to fall. I saw the whole thing in slow motion as I did it. The panic and fear in his eyes, the struggle, the panic, the flailing as it began to fall. I took a while to collect myself and then just kept walking back to my car. And yes, I still hike there to this day, because fuck letting that dickhead take my favorite hiking spot from me.